I was in Samoa taking my kids back for the first time, back to Samoa. And we went to go and find my great-grandmother's grave during this process in Mangiangi. And for the first time we found it, and it happened to be the anniversary of her death, the day that we found it. You go on these journeys and things happen that are meant to be. I feel like in lots of ways, that was the story of Ngā Aotearoa, Two Worlds. It was just meant to be, and that's why it happened. My name is Ursula Grace Williams. I'm obviously a director, that's why we're talking. Placing our attention on other people and hearing who they are makes us reflect and ask ourselves who we are. And it really does, it asks something of us. And I think Marlon being brave enough to step into his te ao Māori, to step into something that he knew and that has laid dormant in him for a long time, asked something of me, which is extremely personal, which is, who are you? What does your line mean? Who was your great-grandfather? Where was your great-grandmother buried? Where is her grave in Mangiangi? How did we get to this place? And so that has been probably my biggest heart highlight. The public persona of Marlon is something that is quite still and composed and serious. And the reality of Marlon is that he flips around like a fantail, and he drops all of his mess everywhere, and he's really speedy, like you can never catch up with him if you're walking alongside him, So we really had to change the way in which we're capturing him by listening to his body, like physically, and then listening to his environment as well, and figuring out what was important to him, what meant something to him, who those people are, where those places are, and just listened with more than just our ears, I guess. I went out into the workforce and I was seeing, various different things, and I was like, I can't see how I see the world reflected in what I'm seeing in the documentary space at this point. And so through my master's thesis, I made a story called The King, and it was very much about duality. And that was invited to the New Zealand International Film Festival, it was invited to the Sydney Film Festival, and it won the Audience Award. And that was kind of the platform, that was the starting point where people started to go, oh, okay, like maybe she could make some other things. I think I read there was like 50 million people in the Pacifica diaspora. That's a big audience. And if you look at it, we're a dedicated audience because we're looking for ourselves within those stories often, and so, your examples were, Moana, but more locally, something like Tina. You look at the online stats for Pacifica content, like Inki Piki Ponki is another example of that just like went off, showing us that, this is world class, and that, the unlikely heroes of the screens can actually be the things that we're looking for, because there's a sense of authenticity and there's a sense of self within them. Got a lot to be proud of at the moment. I'm so interested in the silver screen. Like, this has always been my absolute, for lack of a better word, I know it's a bit cheesy, but a dream, to make films that people watch together, because I think so little of our time is spent collectively now. And so the collective experience of showing up, like going to a concert or going to the cinema or, doing something as a collective, to me is very exciting, and you get to hear other people's responses and talk to people afterwards. But yeah, I definitely think long form is where my heart is and always has been, and it feels like everything that I've learnt to date has led to this point. You can catch the film throughout cinemas across the country. It's been released from 1st of May, and it'll be going for a few weeks. So definitely go check it out.